Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into the world of Thorchain, a platform that's making waves in the crypto world.
Exciting stuff.
It is, and this one is especially for those of you who are just starting out with crypto.
We'll make sure to keep things super clear and simple. No confusing jargon, promise.
Exactly. So imagine being able to swap different cryptocurrencies directly without needing a centralized exchange, maybe even earn some passive income. That's what Thorchain is all about.
It's like having a decentralized marketplace where you can trade your Bitcoin for, say, Ethereum directly with other users.
Cutting out the middleman. So what makes this decentralized marketplace different from the exchanges most people are used to?
Well, for starters, it's built on blockchain technology. That means it's spread across a network of computers.
Not controlled by one single company.
Exactly, and that makes it way more secure and resistant to any kind of censorship. Plus, it allows for something called cross-chain swapping, which means you can trade cryptocurrencies that exist on totally different blockchains.
Cross-chain swapping, I have to admit that sounds a bit complicated.
It's simpler than it sounds. Imagine you have some Bitcoin, which is on the Bitcoin blockchain, right?
Right.
And you want to swap it for Ethereum, which is on a completely different blockchain called Ethereum.
Okay, I'm following so far.
Normally, you'd have to go through this whole process of wrapped token or bridges,
Which can be risky, from what I heard.
and expensive, but with Thorchain, you can swap them directly.
So, like a universal translator for crypto. Okay, this is starting to make more sense. Now, I've heard a lot of talk about something called RUNE when people mention Thorchain.
Ah, yes, RUNE. RUNE is the native token of the entire Thorchain ecosystem. Think of it like the fuel that keeps the whole system running.
Got it.
It's used for everything, from securing the network to providing liquidity for swaps. You can even use it to participate in governance decisions.
Wait, governance decisions, does that mean RUNE holders get to decide how Thorchain operates?
Absolutely. It's like a democracy for the platform. Run holders can vote on proposals like which new cryptocurrencies to add or if they want to change any of the system's rules.
That's pretty cool. So it's truly community-driven. Love that. But before we get too deep into those details, I'm curious about Thorchain's backstory. Where did it all begin?
Well, Thorchain's story starts back in June 2018.
Wow, 2018. That's pretty early in the crypto world.
It is. A group of developers came together and they had this vision of a truly decentralized and interoperable future for cryptocurrencies.
Ahead of their time, huh? So what were some of the big milestones or features that helped shape Thorchain into what it is today?
There have been so many exciting developments. One of the biggest was when they launched their mainnet back in June 2022.
A big step for any platform.
It was. It showed that the platform was becoming more mature and stable. And to celebrate, they launched this really cool initiative, the Run in a Million campaign.
Running a million. Sounds interesting.
It was basically a huge giveaway. They gave away $1 million worth of RUNE to users on Binance, the popular exchange.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of Binance.
Yeah, it was a great way to introduce Thorchain to more people and get them excited about what decentralized finance could do.
I love that. Spreading the word and getting more people involved in DeFi. So what happened after the mainnet launch? Did they just kick back and relax?
Definitely not. Pretty soon after, they integrated Atom, the native token of the Cosmos ecosystem.
Atom. Cosmo.
I know, more crypto lingo. Think of Cosmos as like a network of interconnected blockchains. Each one has its own special features and capabilities.
And Atom is what connects them.
Exactly. Atom is like the glue that holds everything together. By integrating Atom, Thorchain created a bridge between its own ecosystem and the world of Cosmos.
And that means
Seamless swaps between a ton of different cryptocurrencies.
it's like opening a whole new dimension for crypto trading. Okay, before we jump into that, I want to make sure we understand all the roles people can play in this Thorchain ecosystem. We've talked about swapping and road, but who else is involved in making it all work?
Well, there are actually 4 key players that keep Thorchain running smoothly. First up, we have the liquidity providers, the real heroes who fuel all those swaps.
Okay, so are they like a banks of the Thorchain world?
Kind of. They deposit their crypto into these things called liquidity pools. These pools are like reserves that make seamless swaps possible.
And I'm guessing, just like banks, they get something in return?
You bet. They earn a return on their deposits. That comes in the form of trading fees and some extra RUNE rewards.
Sounds good to me. So can anyone just become a liquidity provider on Thorchain?
Absolutely. It's a great way to earn passive income with your crypto, but of course there are some risks, like something called impermanent loss.
We can talk about that later, maybe.
For now, just know that liquidity providers are absolutely essential to keeping Thorchain running.
Got it. Who else is in this Thorchain crew?
Next up, we've got the swappers.
The everyday users.
Exactly. These are the people who just want to exchange one cryptocurrency for another quickly and easily, and Thorchain makes it super easy to do that.
Besides convenience, what are the benefits of swapping on Thorchain compared to, say, a traditional exchange?
Well, first of all, you have way more control over your assets because it's decentralized. No need to trust a third party with your hard-earned crypto.
That's a big plus for me, especially with all the security issues you hear about with exchanges.
Right. Plus, you have access to a much bigger variety of assets thanks to its cross-chain capabilities, and often the fees are much lower because there's no middleman taking a cut.
Okay, Thorchains has sounded pretty great so far. So who else is along for the ride?
We also have the traders, the savvy users who are always looking for opportunities to profit from price differences in the market.
So they're the ones who are constantly monitoring prices.
Yep. They use Thorchain to capitalize on those price differences and maximize their profits.
Sounds a bit advanced for me. I think I'll stick to swapping for now. Who else rounds out the Thorchain ecosystem?
Last but not least, we've got the node operators, the tech-savvy folks who run the servers that power the whole Thorchain network.
Okay, what do you do exactly?
They're responsible for things like validating transactions, securing the blockchain, and making sure everything's running smoothly.
They're kind of like the Guardians of the Galaxy, huh?
Exactly. And of course, they're rewarded for their efforts with real tokens. Makes sense.
It does. So we've got our liquidity providers, swappers, traders, and node operators, all working together in this decentralized ecosystem. But let's go back to the heart of it all, the RUNE token. I'm ready to dig a little deeper and understand what makes it so special.
Let's do it. We've touched on some of its key roles, but there's still so much more to explore about RUNE.
Great, I'm all ears. What else makes RUNE stand out in the crypto world?
Well, one of the most fascinating things about RUNE is that it's a settlement asset for all swaps on Thorchain. So let's say you're trading Bitcoin for Ethereum.
Okay.
Instead of directly swapping Bitcoin for Ethereum, you're actually trading Bitcoin for RUNE and then RUN for Ethereum.
Why the extra step? Doesn't that seem a bit roundabout?
I know it might sound counterintuitive, but there's a really good reason for it. By using RUNE as a kind of middleman, Thorchain gets rid of the need for having tons of different trading pairs.
Okay, and that's good because...
It makes everything much more efficient. It concentrates the liquidity and helps the whole system run more smoothly.
So RUNE is like the universal connector that brings all these different cryptocurrencies together. I'm starting to see why people are so excited about Thorchain. But before we move on, I'd love to understand this burning run concept a little better. How does that actually work, and what does it mean for people who hold RUNE?
Let's break it down. So when you swap crypto on Thorchain, a tiny part of the RUNE used in that transaction is sent to a special address. It's called a burn address.
Burn address, what happens there?
It's like a black hole for RUNE. Any tokens sent to that address are gone, permanently removed from the circulating supply.
Okay, so it's like they're destroyed. But why burn them at all? What's the point of reducing the supply?
Well, think about it like this. Imagine you have a limited edition collectible, something rare.
Okay, got it.
What happens to its value as fewer of them exist?
It goes up, right? Because it's more scarce?
Exactly. It's the same idea with RUNE. By burning some of the tokens, Thorchain makes sure that the total supply of RUNE decreases over time, which can help increase its value.
Oh, so it's like a built-in way to fight inflation and keep RUNE scarce. But how does that benefit people who actually hold RUNE? Doesn't burning their tokens mean they're losing money?
Not necessarily. While burning has reduced the total number of RUNE tokens out there, it can also make each individual token more valuable. So even though some of their RUNE might be burned, the value of their remaining RUNE might actually go up.
So there's a trade-off. Interesting. But how does Thorchain decide how much RUNE to burn with each swap? Is it just a random amount?
It's definitely not random. It's all carefully calculated. They look at things like the size of the swap, the price of RUNE at that moment, and the overall health of the network.
So there's a whole algorithm behind it.
Exactly. It's like a balancing act to keep everything running smoothly.
Fascinating. So what happens to the run that isn't burned?
The run that's not burned goes to the liquidity providers and the node operators.
The folks we talked about earlier?
Yep, they're the ones who are providing those essential services that make Thorchain work.
So it's like a reward system to encourage people to participate in the network. But what about the very first run tokens? How did those get out there in the beginning?
Good question. When Thorchain first launched, they created a total of 1 billion run tokens. But they didn't just give them all away. Some went to the developers as a reward for building the platform, and another portion was sold to raise money for development and marketing.
So kind of like a startup raising funds.
Exactly. And a big chunk of the run supply was given to users who were involved in the early stages, like the pioneers who helped build things up.
It's like rewarding the early adopters. But what about the run that's set aside for ongoing rewards? How is that distributed?
That's where things get really interesting. Thorchain has this amazing mechanism called the incentive pendulum.
Incentive pendulum? Okay, I'm intrigued.
Think of it like a pendulum swinging back and forth. When everything on the network is running smoothly, the pendulum is balanced and the rewards are spread out evenly.
Makes sense.
But let's say there aren't enough liquidity providers, that throws things out of balance.
Okay, and what happens then?
The pendulum swings in the other direction, and the rewards for those who provide liquidity go up.
So it's a way to attract more liquidity providers and get things back in balance.
Exactly. It's like a self-regulating system that's constantly adjusting to stay in harmony.
Wow, that's pretty cool. But how does Thorchain actually measure whether the network is balanced or not? What are they looking at?
This is where it gets a bit technical, but they're tracking things like the total value locked in liquidity pools, how many node operators are active, the volume of swaps, and the overall security of the network.
Okay, so they're using data to make sure everything is running optimally.
Precisely. And based on this data, the incentive pendulum automatically adjusts those rewards to keep things running in harmony.
I'm amazed by the complexity and the thought that's gone into designing this. It's a testament to how powerful blockchain technology can be.
Absolutely. It really shows how innovative developers are shaping the future of finance.
Okay, before we wrap things up for this part of our deep dive, I want to shift gears and talk about security. It's been on my mind as we've been talking.
Great point. Security is super important, especially when we're talking about crypto.
Exactly. We've been talking about how Thorchain is decentralized and how users control their own keys, which is great. But, I've also heard about some past vulnerabilities, some exploits. Can you talk about that a bit, just to reassure our listeners that their funds are safe on Thorchain?
Of course. It's important to remember that no system is completely immune to attacks, especially in a world like crypto, which is constantly evolving. Just like any platform that handles a lot of value, Thorchain has had its challenges.
Okay, so they've had some issues.
There have been a few times when vulnerabilities were found and exploited, which isn't ideal, obviously.
I understand. So how did they respond to these incidents? What steps have they taken to prevent this from happening again and regain the trust of the community?
Well, the most important thing is that they've been really transparent about it. They've openly communicated with the community, explaining exactly what happened and what they're doing to fix it. That's been super important in rebuilding trust.
Transparency is key, for sure. What about actual security upgrades?
They've definitely made a lot of upgrades. For example, they now use a multi-signature scheme for transactions, which adds an extra layer of security. And they have a buzz bounty program that rewards ethical hackers for finding and reporting vulnerabilities.
So they're learning from their mistakes and making things more secure.
Exactly. And because Thorchain is decentralized, it's harder for attackers to compromise the entire system. If a few nodes have problems, the rest of the network can keep working without any interruptions.
That makes sense. It's like having a safety net. But what about those smart contracts we talked about? Those can have bugs too, right?
You're right. Smart contracts can be vulnerable. That's why Thorchain has independent security experts audit their smart contracts regularly. They've also got a system called formal verification, which is a way to mathematically prove that their code is correct.
Formal verification. That sounds pretty intense.
It is, but it helps ensure that their smart contracts are reliable.
That's great to hear.
And beyond the technical stuff, they've also created a strong culture of security within the community. They conduct regular security checks, educate their users, and encourage everyone to be really careful about protecting their crypto.
So it's a holistic approach then. Technical safeguards and community involvement.
Exactly.
That's reassuring. But I think it's important to remember that no system is perfect. We should all be vigilant and take responsibility for protecting our crypto, right? Well, on that note of caution and empowerment, I think it's a good time to pause our deep dive for now. We've covered a lot of ground, the basics of swapping to the importance of security. But we're not done yet. Welcome back to the show, everyone. We're wrapping up our deep dive into Thorchain, and now it's time to shift gears a bit.
Time to get practical.
Exactly. We've talked about the tech, but now let's explore how Thorchain is actually being used in the real world.
It's exciting to see it in action.
It is. So let's say I'm a crypto beginner, someone who's just getting started. How can I actually use Thorchain?
Well, one of the most common ways people use Thorchain is for swapping cryptocurrencies. Remember, Thorchain allows you to swap cryptocurrencies that are on different blockchains without needing to go through a centralized exchange.
Right, that cross-chain swapping thing.
Exactly. So let's say you want to swap some of your Bitcoin for some Ethereum. It's easy. You connect your crypto wallet to Thorchain, select Bitcoin and Ethereum, and Thorchain does the rest.
It sounds pretty straightforward.
It is. Thorchain's algorithms will figure out the most efficient way to execute that trade for you.
So Thorchain is like a really smart matchmaker for your crypto.
You could say that. It's finding the best deals for you across different blockchains. Now, what if you're not really looking to swap, but you want to earn some passive income with your crypto?
Well, earning passive income sounds pretty good to me.
Thorchain has you covered there too. They have a feature called Savers Vaults.
Savers vaults, what are those?
Think of them as high-yield savings accounts for your crypto. You deposit your crypto like Bitcoin or Ethereum, and you earn rewards just for holding it there.
So it's like my crypto is working for me even when I'm not actively trading.
Exactly. Your crypto is put to work providing liquidity to the Thorchain network. That helps facilitate swaps between different assets, and you get a share of the trading fees as a reward.
Okay, that makes sense. But are there any risks with these savers vaults?
Well, as with any investment, there are always risks to consider. One risk with savers vaults is something called impermanent loss.
Impermanent loss. That sounds a little scary.
It's not as bad as it sounds. Basically, impermanent loss happens when the price of the asset you deposited changes a lot compared to the price of RUNE.
Okay, I see.
But Thorchain has ways to minimize that risk, and over time, the rewards you can earn often outweigh those risks.
So savers vaults could be a good option for someone who wants to earn passive income, but isn't ready for more active trading. Are there other ways to earn on Thorchain?
You could become a liquidity provider. With this, you deposit both RUNE and another asset into a liquidity pool. You'll earn a share of the fees from all swaps involving that specific pair of assets.
So that's a bit more hands-on.
It is a bit more involved. You're playing a more active role in the market. But for now, let's talk about what the future holds for Thorchain. There are some really exciting developments on the horizon.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's next for Thorchain?
One of the areas with huge potential is decentralized lending and borrowing. Imagine using your Bitcoin as collateral to borrow Ethereum or the other way around.
And all without dealing with a traditional bank.
Exactly. No centralized intermediary involved.
That's a game changer.
It is. And while it's still early days, there are already projects working on this, building on Thorchain's technology.
It's amazing to see what's possible. But I have to bring up security again. I know Thorchain has had some challenges in the past. What are they doing to address those and make sure the platform is safe for users?
Absolutely. Security is a top priority for them. They have a dedicated team constantly working on security, looking for and fixing any vulnerabilities. And they've learned a lot from the past.
What kind of measures have they taken to improve security?
They've implemented a multi-layered security approach, including rigorous code audits, bug bounty programs to incentivize ethical hackers to help find vulnerabilities, and they're always researching and developing new security measures.
So they're not just sitting back and waiting for problems to arise.
Definitely not. And just as importantly, they're very transparent with the community. Whenever there's a security incident, they're open about what happened and what steps they're taking to address it.
Transparency is so important, especially in the crypto world.
I agree. But security isn't just about the technology, it's also about how the platform is governed. Thorchain's decentralized governance model helps a lot in that regard.
How so?
Well, because it's decentralized, there's no single point of failure. All the decisions about the platform's future are made by the community, by consensus.
So it's like a collective effort to keep things secure and moving in the right direction.
Exactly, and that makes it much more resilient and adaptable to any challenges that may come up.
That's really impressive. But as we wrap up our Thorchain journey, I want to leave our listeners with a final question to think about.
I love a good thought-provoking question.
How do you think Thorchain will impact the future of finance? Will it revolutionize the traditional financial system? Or will it find a way to work alongside existing institutions? What's your take?
That's the big question, isn't it? It's hard to predict the future, but I do believe that Thorchain and other DeFi platforms are going to play a bigger and bigger role in how we all think about and interact with money. We're already seeing that shift happen.
It's an exciting time to be a part of it, that's for sure. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of Thorchain.
It's been a fun journey.
It has. I hope everyone listening has learned something new and maybe even feels inspired to explore DeFi themselves.
If you're hungry for more deep dives into crypto, blockchain, and all things tech, don't forget to subscribe and join us again for our next adventure.
Until then, stay curious, keep learning, and happy diving, everyone.